From in and around the Capital Region on the Alive Radio Network, this is The Matter at Hand. I'm Alicia Purdy.
I say, roll, Jordan, roll, roll, Jordan, roll. My soul arise in heaven, Lord, for the year when Jordan roll. Hallelujah, roll, Jordan, roll, roll, Jordan, roll. My soul arise in heaven, Lord, for the year when Jordan roll. Hallelujah, roll, Jordan, roll.
The month of June is a month of many celebrations, events, and commemorations. But this week, around the United States, Americans are celebrating Juneteenth, which has just become the country's newest federal holiday. Senate Bill 475, the Juneteenth National Independence Day Act, passed in the Senate and in the House with 415 to 14 votes to recognize June 19, 1865 as a public holiday in the U.S., and President Joe Biden quickly signed the bill into law, calling slavery America's original sin. The holiday will be the first federal holiday established since Martin Luther King Jr. Day in 1983 and will become at least the 11th federal holiday recognized by the U.S. government. Although President Abraham Lincoln had issued the Emancipation Proclamation in 1863, which had freed all enslaved Black Americans, rebel states in the South had refused to honor it, and because most slaves could not read or write, the nearly 4 million slaves remained enslaved until abolitionists and leaders in the Union Army appeared in Galveston, Texas, to announce the news that freedom had come and to enforce it to resistant slave owners.
Other people didn't have no beds when they were slaves. People slept on the floor. Pallet here, pallet there. Just like a lot of wild people. We didn't know nothing. Didn't like looking no book.
But Black Americans were not just spectators to the war for their freedom. In fact, during the Civil War, approximately 200,000 African Americans joined Union forces to fight for their freedom and the freedom of others and help save the Union.
We said, I stood on that picket fence all day long seeing them soldiers going back to Silent Zone in different places. Colored soldiers in Joe.
African American women worked as spies in the Civil War and even served as army nurses. And of the African American soldiers who had been disenfranchised and enslaved, Union General Benjamin Butler called them remarkable, saying, "Better soldiers never shouldered a musket." In 1865, President Lincoln said without the military help of the Black freedmen, the war against the South could not have been won.
Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom over me. And before I'll be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. Oh, freedom.
Christian history records that after the Emancipation Proclamation was read out loud on the courthouse steps in Galveston, Texas, those gathered then progressed to Methodist Episcopal South Church for a public prayer meeting. While history did not record the words of the prayers from that gathering, that the event itself happened was noteworthy, as public prayer meetings by African American slaves were rare during that era. Typically, enslaved Black Americans practiced their faith in organized secret meetings or invisible institutions, as renowned African American religious historian Albert J. Raboteau later called them, where enslaved communities could sing their own songs, preach their own sermons from their own hearts, and pray their own prayers, rather than being forced to endure sermons at the white churches of their masters, who equated obedience to the master as obedience to God.
We were slaves. We belonged to people. They sell us like they sell horses and cows and hogs and all like that, have an auction bench, and they put you up on the bench and bid on you, the same as you're bidding on cattle, you know.
Today, all but 4 states celebrate Juneteenth, with Texas being the first state to formally, legally recognize the holiday. In the Capital Region, the African American Cultural Center, which serves Albany, Troy, Rensselaer, Schenectady, Saratoga, Schoharie, Fulton, and Montgomery County, works to promote awareness of African American culture and history through educational, cultural, and performing arts, unique programs, activities, and exhibits. The group hosted a Juneteenth celebration at their base in Albany on South Pearl Street, featuring trolley rides and tours of the Underground Railroad Education Center, as well as numerous vendors, musicians, artists, and educators to commemorate both the day of Juneteenth and the passage of the federal Juneteenth holiday this month. However, a larger celebration had been in the works for months at the Altamont Fairgrounds, but made headlines when it was abruptly canceled at the last minute over a lack of permits. Event organizer Greg Cornegay said the event was going to be historic, with several major headline performances, and he said that he had sold about 1,000 tickets only to refund the money. He said he felt slighted by the facility's board of directors, and disappointed attendees questioned whether the permit issue was racially motivated. In New York State, Juneteenth became a state worker holiday in 2020, and in 2021, Governor Andrew Cuomo issued an executive order to formally make the day a statewide holiday.
It is a day that we should all reflect upon. It's a day that's especially relevant in this moment in history. Juneteenth commemorates the emancipation of slavery in the United States.
Although the Juneteenth National Independence Day Act passed with an overwhelming majority, not everyone supported the measure. 14 House representatives voted against the bill. Rep. Thomas Massey, a Republican from Kentucky, argued that referring to Juneteenth as a National Independence Day would confuse people and detract from the real Independence Day, July 4th, a day of true independence for all Americans. In a statement, Massey said, "I fully support creating a day to celebrate the abolition of slavery, a dark portion of our nation's history. But," said Massey, "referring to the day as a National Independence Day would push Americans to pick one of those 2 days as their Independence Day based on their racial identity." Massey expressed his sentiment that the day should be called Emancipation Day, that should embrace all Americans who can come together as Americans and celebrate the day together as one. Rep. Chip Roy, a Republican from Texas, also objected to the name of the bill, saying it should not be called Juneteenth National Independence Day, but rather Juneteenth National Emancipation Day. According to Roy, the name needlessly divides the nation by creating a separate Independence Day based on the color of one's skin. Despite the passage of the legislation, a move which took decades of activism to get in place, there remains a simmering culture clash that is reaching a boiling point as schools grapple with how to address educating students about the complex history of the United States and the effects of slavery within an accurate framework, in addition to controversial and deeply politicized approaches to education involving systemic racism and critical race theory, which many parents and educators alike are pushing back against with as much force as proponents of those theories are pushing. In fact, when asked about the issue of critical race theory during the passage of the Juneteenth National Independence Day Act, many of the Democratic lawmakers in attendance expressed their perspective that the commemoration of Juneteenth does not fully address what they feel are lagging racial justice efforts in the U.S. And Texas State NAACP President Gary Bledsoe called a national Juneteenth recognition a hollow celebration, as he says there's much more work still to be done to address what he called ongoing systemic racism. The song Lift Every Voice and Sing has long been a pillar of Black culture and life in America, sung at church ceremonies, political protests, school graduations, and family gatherings, and it's now the official Black national anthem, performed before each NFL game ahead of the Star-Spangled Banner, sung at protests across the country following the death of George Floyd, slipped into national anthems at NASCAR races, and even co-opted by President Joe Biden for one of his campaign proposals, Lift Every Voice, the Biden plan for Black America.
Let us march on. Till victory is won.
The song was written during a fraught moment in African American history when post-Civil War Reconstruction efforts were being dismantled, segregation had become codified into law, and the Jim Crow era was rising to its height. In this hostile climate, many Black communities turned inward, forming their own schools, newspapers, musical groups, religious and social organizations. It was then in 1899 that James Weldon Johnson and his brother, John Rosamond Johnson, set out to write a poem commemorating the birthday of Abraham Lincoln. But they say the words and music that came from their hearts were instead about Black struggle and perseverance. The song Lift Every Voice and Sing that they wrote spread throughout Black communities in the U.S. who adopted it as their own, its words as their own, its themes as their own, its message as their own. Generation after generation, sung both as a personal anthem and a collective political one over decades of civil rights struggles. In fact, when the Civil Rights era began in the 1950s, Lift Every Voice and Sing was sung during organizational meetings for the Montgomery bus boycott and quoted in speeches by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. As social justice movements gradually encroach upon the work done through the civil rights movement, the church is also wrestling with addressing ongoing issues pertaining to race, and pastors are facing a complex set of issues in congregations that are too white, too Black, lacking in approved social justice measures, or apologizing for mistakes they didn't make and problems they didn't create. Is celebrating Juneteenth in alignment with the openly anti-religious Black Lives Matter movement? What role should the church at large play in closing the ever-widening divide within the body of Christ over skin color, culture, history, and moving forward together? Can people of other skin colors and cultures celebrate Juneteenth, or is it a uniquely Black American holiday that only Black Americans can appreciate or understand? Ryan Baumgartner, an Emmy Award-winning international public speaker and author of the book Not Equal, Civil Rights Gone Wrong, says Juneteenth should be a reminder to never see any group of humans as non-persons. And he says, the evil of slavery is a blood-soaked stain on American history, but it was not just merely the byproduct of racism. Baumgartner said, more importantly, racism was the result of the sin of greed, which knows no color. And he points out that Black slavery began with the Africans themselves, who were capturing and enslaving their fellow Africans, sending them to the coast to be shipped outside. Just a few years ago, the nation of Ghana officially apologized for their country's role in slavery in America. Pastor Darrell Scott is the co-founder of the New Spirit Revival Center in Cleveland Heights, Ohio, and he says it's crucial that Juneteenth be celebrated among all Americans. And he says it must not become a day exclusive to the Black communities in America.
It's more than just a Black holiday. It's a holiday that commemorates the fact that whites died in this country. Whites died so that Blacks could be free. Even though slavery was an institution in America, it was never unanimously adopted by all Americans, thus the Civil War. And so we want it to be an inclusive holiday that is not divisive, that is not a holiday simply for Black people only. It's a holiday that commemorates the unity of this country. I think we can cause it to have a greater significance today than it has carried in the past.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring. Ring with the harmonies of liberty.
Examining the issues that pertain to the people of God. This is the matter at hand. From in and around the Capital Region, on the Alive Radio Network, I'm Alicia Purdy.